Hello, 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 and welcome to today's episode of Her Version. This podcast is dedicated to sharing stories of struggle to triumph, a platform that allows individuals to tell their truth in order to inspire and uplift others. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Make sure you follow, like, and share. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria. Let's jump right in. Hello, and thank you for joining us today for this episode of Her Version. The Her Version platform is built on storytelling and the understanding that many times our greatest learning experiences come from listening to other people's stories. Today, I am speaking with an amazing woman named Jules. Jules is a woman who has lived two lives in one lifetime. First, with childhood abuse and trauma, which grew into a full-blown disease of alcohol. Second was moving past all that pain and into a wonderful life. She is the amazing author of The Making of a Woman and has been on dozens of podcasts and radio shows. She is here to talk about removing expectations, living authentically, and ignoring the dogma of society. Jules insists on being guided with love and empathy. Welcome, Jules. How are you?
Oh, I'm fantastic. How are you doing?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for a little bit today. I so appreciate you taking some time out of your day. How's your week been?
It's been good. We're cold here. I'm in Texas, and we are having a crazy weirdness of sleet and snow. So
I heard that just yesterday. Somebody said it was freezing cold rain, and I was like, I do not know Texas.
I know it's like 25 degrees right now.
Oh my gosh. Is that odd or is that normal for where you're at?
It's odd, but it's been becoming the norm probably the last 3 years now. We'll have these bouts. Like last year, we had that crazy ice storm. And so unfortunately, it's becoming more of a regular thing.
Wow. Are you Northern Texas?
Yes, I'm in Dallas.
Okay. Yeah. So, well, a little more understandable. If it was more towards Mexico, it would be like, oh my God.
Right.
But, the shifts happen.
Yes.
Well, listen, I'm so happy to have you here. And, like I said, for you taking some time to come on and share your journey and your story. What I'd like to do, if you don't mind, is just kind of open the floor to you and kind of allow you to tell us, a little bit about your story, your journey, the challenges that you've been through, and, what led you to where you are today. Is that cool?
I think that sounds fantastic. So just a little snapshot. I was born in the 70s in a very northern Midwestern state. So in that area and in that time frame, resources were very limited. And I like to say that because I like to have love in my heart for my mom, because the decisions she made were based on that particular thing. I have to believe that. So we were just a small family. It was my dad, my mom and me. I had my coonhounds, my dogs that I adored. My dad, I was a daddy's girl. I would go anywhere with him, hop up in that big truck with him and off for the day we would go. I was just his main man, So, life for me was very happy. I didn't see any of the behind the scenes stuff. I just saw, it was just warmth and love and fun. Right. And that came to a crashing halt. It was one evening where, my dad came home really late. And again, resources were limited. And so my father didn't have an education, nor did he have a career. He was a laborer with very limited knowledge, I think, of how to provide for a household at his level of income. And he also drank a lot. And so again, this is just the normal. I saw all of my family members drink. It was just what we do. And then that evening in particular, he came home very, very annihilated and very much at his wit's end. And I can appreciate the desperation and the limited options. And so he felt at that point in time, the best solution was to commit a family suicide. And now learning what that was all about, I've learned about how pride is really, really strong within the masculine, and back in this day and age, I mean, I can't imagine the defeat he must have felt, because you, as a man, that's can you provide for your family? This is everything was built on that pride aspect. So if, as you can imagine, it was scary. And my mom did everything that she had to do to get us out of there. I'm grateful to say that that was not a successful evening for anybody involved. But it was probably like 2:00 in the morning. And my mom and I got in this big old, like 1976 or 60, 76 Pontiac. So it's this gigantic car for my little body. And we, wisp off into the night. And we didn't come back. And so at that point in time, I'm very confused. I'm very scared. And I'm just wondering, where's my daddy? What are we doing? Because I was sleeping when all that happened.
Yeah.
I would remember my dad coming back and, saying goodbyes to me and telling me how much he loves me. And, well, this is fabulous stuff. I love you too, Daddy, But little did I know, every time he came back to do that, my mom was taking the gun off the kitchen table and throwing it outside. And this was a rinse and repeat until odd hours of the morning.
Wow.
Yeah, right. A lot to take in. And honestly, it was, again, this is just at this age and the way my psyche works. And this just became normal. This is what you do, right? And so it was a scary moment, but we ran. We ran to some family members. And, and this ultimately taught me that if there's something this big or a conflict, it taught me how to run. We hear about fight and flight and freeze. And man, I had tennis shoes on since I was probably 6 years old.
Wow.
So yeah, a lot of learning psychologically. I learned how to function. My mom quickly, again, I have to believe, due to limited resources, quickly remarried. And she remarried into a very large family. And it was unknown at the time, but that family was very much an incestuous family. And so then that trauma of not having my father and then, being put into this very foreign setting, I got real lost. And then I got real quiet. And so I just remember, like, as I reflect back, it's just like this, almost like this little shadow of a girl. I just did not want to be in the spotlight, because the people in the spotlight always got the attention, and I didn't want the attention from that stepfather. So, it was one of my new siblings who, started the cycle of abuse. And, it started with just looking at magazines and telling me this is what big girls do. And
Wow.
this is, this is how it's going to be when you grow up. And so that conditioning really started to set deep at that stage.
Wow. How old were you when this just happened? Like 9?
Yes, because we left my father's at like 6 or 7.
6,
And then
yeah.
from like 7, probably about 3 years.
Wow.
3 years this took place. And it was every morning, because, this is, again, it's the resource thing. That's all I can think of. But it's like, this is back in the day when, other siblings would take care of their brothers and sisters while mom and dad went to work. So, my brother and sister would get us ready to get on the bus. It was just that way. There was never any adults there in the morning. And, now that I don't know if that's even a thing anymore, but so it really allowed enough time for things to really get off track. And so, as with I believe most people who indulge in this trauma, is that we acquire a lot of rage. I was angry. I wasn't understanding. I was fearful, and I was in sorrow. I missed my dad. And I kind of lost my mom in this too. I think she went into a survival mode. And so all of that love and affection, it just became very absent. So it was a really, really big time of confusion for me.
Did you have anyone that you could confide in or love up on or?
No.
Wow.
No, because again, this is in the 70s where we don't tell people what the problems are, right? Everything's kept behind closed doors. And so I don't even know if my mom, when we stopped at the relatives, when we left that night, I don't even know to what extent she told them what happened. But in the new family, it was just my mom and I didn't have any connections. Besides, I guess, holidays, we would probably do things at the holidays, but on a day-to-day basis, no, there wasn't.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And then leading up through high school, schooling, how did that?
Yep. So as we moved a couple times, which I'm totally grateful for because it reset the stage and it gave me a new environment. And then people would also in my family grow up and grow out and move out, which was a blessing. But then again, it's like now I'm going into puberty. Now I'm really using this sex, the promiscuous, all of the parts of me I'm now using as a vehicle. Because this is my norm.
Yeah.
So I'm in Southern California and I'm going through all of this. My family ultimately gets a divorce and we move back to the Midwest where I do enroll in high school. And I think at this point I was so off the rails, and my mom, at this part, I don't know what was going through her thoughts. But it was like she just couldn't control me, apparently. And so, drinking and drugging is already in the picture. I'm get back to this small town. I'm a big California girl, right? My heels and mini skirts. Oh, yeah. I'm sure they saw me coming a mile away. And so I had a meeting with the counselor there, the school counselor. And he actually told me, he goes, Jules, I don't think you're going to be very successful here. There are other options of getting your high school diploma. And he gave me the idea of getting my GED. And at this stage, I was so angry and so ready to get out of the grips of the adults in my life that I took that green light and I ran with it. And so I took all of those life skills and I went into adulthood. Full-blown disease of alcoholism, drug usage, wrong people, doing the wrong things at the wrong places.
Yeah.
Just like we hear.
So did you leave your mom?
I did.
Not leave her, but did you move out?
I did. Absolutely. Because she gave me the option, because at this point she's like, listen, you either go into foster care or you go back and live with your stepfather. Well, come on now. There wasn't even an option in those two things, right?
Yeah,
so I actually moved in with my stepfather again, the abusive man, who was kind of the king of this household of incestuous family unit. And so then I just manipulated my way right out of that one. I had those sorts of tools at that stage. So yeah.
What made you choose your stepdad over your mother? Where did that stem from?
Because she didn't give me the option. She told me I had to move out.
Wow.
Yeah. And it was right after that when she moved to a new place. And remember, it's now just my younger brother and her. And she gets a 2-bedroom. So which pretty much tells me I will not be staying with him. Wow. I was 16. Wow. So yeah, a lot of decisions that were made that were not of my control. I don't understand some of them. Some of them I can, others I don't. I've come to peace with most of them, I have to think.
Definitely. So as far as staying with your stepdad, how long did that last?
Probably 3 months.
Okay.
Probably 3 months, because in this time, there's not a lot of funding going on, right? My mom's not making a lot of money. My dad's not making a lot of money. And so he had told me, he said, Jules, if you're going to live here, you need to get a job, because I can't afford to feed you and your brother, and there's no child support going on. And so I went to a local A&W restaurant and I got a part-time job. And again, this whole ego side of me, that the defensive side is kicking in, and I'm getting a lot of what the heck? Why are we? Oh no, if we can make our own money, that means we can get our own place, which means I'm out of the grips of this guy. So it was within 3 months that I was like, I'm out. Totally. Yeah.
Wow. So did you take it upon yourself to get your GED? Did you
I did.
Yes.
Because this is the most craziest part, right? You hear of this story of the girl that, kind of goes off the rails, gets out there. And then it's like, oh, she's free and she's partying and having the time of her life. No. I was desperately, every move I made was with the motive of getting my feet underneath me. I
Wow.
desperately wanted to be self-sufficient. I desperately wanted not to have to rely upon anybody, because then that meant I couldn't be harmed.
Yeah.
And so that's all I wanted to do. I have 7 transcripts from various colleges that I had gone to over the course of those
Wow.
19 years when I was out there just trying to get my feet underneath me. So
Wow.
I definitely am a fighter. That is
Yeah.
yeah.
So when did alcohol or drug abuse or alcohol or whichever kind of come to a halt where you realized there was an issue? How old? When was that?
You know, I wish I would have realized. I think this is one of those things we hear God does for you what you can't do for yourself. I think
Yeah.
because I was so in depths of the disease of alcoholism and the delusional perspective you get on life after you continue to like circle the drain, and it's like this becomes the reality. And so I didn't even realize there was a problem outside of my decisions. So I was actually 35 years old when I got sober. And
Wow.
I happened to be in a relationship with a woman in Texas, and it was just a nonchalant kind of afternoon, no big plans. And we were driving around in Dallas, and I had made this small comment. I just wish I didn't drink so much. And I'm not kidding, Sabrina. It was like those women were like God sitting in the front seat. Within a 30-minute window, I'm sitting in one of those cold metal chairs of the rooms of recovery. It
Really?
was unbelievable. And I guess I'm at this stage where I'm so tired of being tired that I'm like desperate for some sort of connection and love. Like, will you
Wow.
please tell me I'm not an idiot? And please tell me that my decision maker, it's just bad choices. Like, I'm not this bad of a person. And so
Yeah.
these people, like I said, we it was like within a very short window of time, I'm sitting in this room and I'm just like, who are these people? Obviously, these are not my caliber of people, right? That typical alcoholic perception of like,
Yeah. Yeah.
oh, they smoke.
Yeah.
Oh, they swear. I mean,
Yeah.
it's so silly looking back about how I protected myself by distancing myself.
Where was
Um,
this? What state were you in?
that was
Like
right there
after
in Dallas,
that? Wow.
Texas.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yep. And whatever took place in that room, because I don't think at this stage I am even remotely attached to my body. I mean, I am in that survival fight or flight mode all the time at this stage. And there was something within the room that just like let a layer of that armor come off just for a little microsecond.
Yeah.
And the tears started. And I couldn't stop the tears. For the
Oh.
entire hour, it was almost like you took the warrior off the war field and you stick her in the, and it's just like you can exhale. And
Yeah.
it was like floodgates. And so I was like, I don't know what this is, but I want more of it. And so the next
Wow.
day I did another meeting, the next day, the next day, the next day. And
Power.
yeah, it really, you know what, that was awesome because then I got a glimpse that there really was something bigger than me, because there
Yeah.
was no way I would have ever thought on that Sunday afternoon at 12:45 that, hey, I should go to the rooms of recovery. I should go
Yeah.
to a meeting. That I did not,
Yeah.
there's no way. I did not put that thought in my head. So
Wow.
that was a beautiful example, because then as I got going, then I could relate to that and see like, oh yeah, I clearly wasn't driving the bus on that day.
Definitely. Wow.
Yeah.
That's a story. That's not common. I want to ask, what would throughout your journey from wee little one to,
Mhm.
where you are now or up to that point, what would you consider to have been your biggest failure? And how did you kind of deal with that?
You know, I have 2 perceptions of that today. If you would have asked me that during that time frame, I
Okay.
would say that, I just couldn't make it. I couldn't be successful. Everything I did was a disaster. And so I just thought that there was something wrong with me. Like I couldn't finish school or I couldn't have a successful relationship. There was just something like organically wrong with me. So I think the failure was in everything I saw.
Makes sense. Definitely.
Yeah.
What have you learned from it? What have you learned from your failure?
So now looking back at that, right? This is the beauty of age. I just have to say, I used to be fighting it. Now I'm leaning into it. There's a lot of wisdom on this side. But, now that I look back, and now I hold such, in a sense, gratitude for it, because I now realize by looking back over this timeline, this journey of mine, that every single thing, every single failure, every day I felt of, being at defeat, every day of that was a part of this whole picture. Like,
Yeah.
I would not know gratitude today to the degree I do unless I would have experienced desperation at the
Yeah.
degree I did. Right. So it's beautiful that I got to experience it all in one lifetime. Some folks don't get that. They either get the first or the second part. I get like the whole thing. And so
Yeah.
it's super cool, because then it's like, even on my toughest days on this side, right? It's like, okay, but Jules, hold up. Remember where you came from. And that really sinks deep with me, right? So I don't see things as a failure anymore, because without it, it produced an experience, which
Definitely.
ultimately got me to this side. So yeah, different perception here today.
Definitely. As far as self-awareness, I think a lot of individuals, not trying to necessarily project this as a whole on the world, but I think there's a lot of people that aren't necessarily self-aware enough to even comprehend, what your viewpoint on that, learning from past experience. So many people just kind of live in the problem, and they live in the constant struggle of. When did you kind of come to the realization? Like, how old was it? Young, middle, older? Of like personal development and being self-aware and realizing that you were actually learning lessons during your life?
So there's two parts to that. I think the first part that I could actually turn inward was when I picked up the book, The Four Agreements. Profound.
Yes.
It is my first spiritual manual of, Jules, it's not just the vision from the driver's seat. Like, I think when you're in trauma and you're in that fight or flight, man, you're the pedals to the floor and you're out of there. Like, you're in the driver's seat. And I think what happens is that when I shifted and started to read some of this stuff, like, what? I'm, my words are, and make sure they're impeccable. Like, wow, I affect somebody else, which means that they're going to affect me. It's like, when I started to kind of chew on this, I mean, it was like, I could not put that book down. It was like the answer I was finally looking for,
How
And
did
so,
you get it? Who gave it to you? You just happened to be
isn't that
saw
cool,
it?
huh? I was a kind of geographical type of person. And so I was in California, yet dating somebody on the East Coast. And she was in recovery as well. And she actually gave me the book, signed it and whatever, for a gift. And little did
Wow.
I know, once again, there's so many gods in skin that if I just get out of the way, everything's like, here, Jules, you need to read this book. Like, oh,
Yes.
it's going to completely change my life, instead of be like, yeah, great, thanks, throw it on the shelf, So I
Yes.
become very mindful of those things today.
That's great. Do you have any mentors, any people that you kind of look up to or follow?
On the outside, not necessarily, beginning on the outside, the visual aspect of it is like, I sometimes joke that getting sober is like being dropped on planet sober. Like, I didn't know the rules. I didn't know how to talk without, like what to say, not to say, what not to say is more like it. Like how to dress, how not to dress. I mean, it was like I was an alien in my new world. And so for me, it started on the outside, I think, as it does with most people. But it's like I started to really look up to people like Sophia Lorenz was a huge influence on me, because that woman just has poise. And I mean, she walks downstairs and I mean, traffic stops. And I mean, I was like, oh my God, I just adore her. And so it's like I almost like incorporated some of her behaviorisms within me. And then that went on to listen like to Oprah Winfrey, like to read her memoir. It's like, holy crap, if this woman made it, I can do this too. Right. And so it's morphed into different things. And now it's like, just even this morning, I felt a little off the beam, and I was listening to Wayne Dyer. right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just like, this is my people. And it's like, oh, get back on track here,
Yeah.
So anything that kind of falls within that genre. And for me today, again, it's like the lady who gave me the book. It's like anything that comes to me and kind of resonates with me is sort of showing me that maybe you need to be looking in this direction. So it may be something as simple as a suggestion on Amazon for my next read. If it
Yeah.
resonates, I pick it up. Like,
Yes.
so those are the things. So it's constantly like this evolving,
Yeah.
source of influence, which is
Yeah.
fantastic. I'm never
I
limited.
love that you're saying that, because I think a lot of times humans tend to think that, either not reading or doing personal development at all, or just doing one, like reading one book
Yeah.
or watching one YouTube video and getting a little bit of like energetic, vibrations from that. And then they wonder why, a year later, 5 years later, 10 years later, their life isn't aligning correctly. And they think back, well, I spent money on this class, or I spent money on this book, and this should be enough. But like what you're saying, there's a constant education, a constant evolving that we have to do. And whenever we get off track, you're like, whenever I start to go a little bit this way, then I realize I need a little bit of Wayne Dyer in my life, so, and you're pulling from everywhere. You're pulling from videos, you're pulling from, material on the internet, you're pulling from books on Amazon. And I think that that's just such an important value, thing that individuals need to recognize, that this is a constant thing. You being where you are right now, mentally and emotionally, and being able to speak about your past has evolved because of, the personal development that you've done over the years. It's great.
And, on that point too, I think that just instinctually we lock into something. If it works once, it's going to work forever. And that was something I had to kind of unlearn too. Like who I was, well, clearly who I was in the beginning of recovery and who I am today is totally different. And if I would have kept holding on to those first 3 years of information, I would have stayed. That's where I would have stayed. Right. And so what I've learned is like, I would be missing the gifts because because everything around me grows with me.
Yeah.
Right. My environment grows with me. So it's all based on the same thing, but it almost like it fine tunes. Because I think the older I get, the more fine tuning. We don't have to do like the bomb effect. I hope to God like things get better.
Yes.
Today. And so now it's, like I pick something up about, like how is my brain wired and why do I have these behaviors? And so yeah, I would be completely missing the gift of growing if I shut down everything and held on to, those first 3 years of information. Good point.
Definitely. Definitely. As far as your sobriety goes, based on where you are now, I don't know how to word this question. Like, it's not all about sobriety. Like, your viewpoint on life and where you are, like sobriety, I think in general, when people start going to meetings, there's an evolving that happens just automatically. Like, I feel like it's almost a gift, because there's things that are learned within those rooms, wherever you go. Doesn't matter where you're going or what you're doing, but they throw you into a thought process that you wouldn't have gotten otherwise. So if it wasn't for sobriety and what was necessarily taught in those rooms or amongst those people, where in your world do you think you kind of would have picked that up? Were you already kind of seeping into that? Or what about people who aren't, don't have the alcohol disease? What do they do? Where are they supposed to be getting this information from?
As I'm listening to you ask the question, I'm like feeling different parts of this, right?
Okay.
I think because first and foremost, because I was in that fight state for so long, that became the normal. I don't think that I would have been able to think my way out of it. I don't think I would have had the cognizant thought of, wow, I should probably try a different way. I don't think that would have been. It was more like, holy crap, I'm exhausted. Like, so it's like the defeat factor. So that's not encouraging to move forward. I think for people that don't have, because, I talk to people, of course, normies or people that don't have this sort of experience. And the cool thing is because I have such almost like the PhD in it, I can pick pieces in their life and see things. So for instance, one of the things is, like if my heart is palpating and my thoughts are just rapid and I'm just like on this, like, I gotta go. Okay. Well, that tells me right there that I'm in a hyper state, right? Like I'm not grounded. I'm not, so even just taking a quick snapshot on the inside and being like, what does my schedule look like today? And if it makes my heart palpate, you know what I'm saying? So it's like, I was like, that for me, that means I'm totally in self-will opposed to being of service to anybody around me, because that's all I can think about, right? Yeah. But things like journaling is a huge, very successful tool. I spoke to a lady actually on the East Coast recently, and she lives everything I just described, that go, and, family and all this other stuff. And she's like, oh my God, what do I do? I'm like, hit the brakes. Can you just pick up and pen to paper, right? There's something magical that happens. And she's like, well, what do I write about? It's like, write about what happened today. At 9 o'clock, I did this, and 10 o'clock, I did this, or better yet, give me 5 things that were super awesome about today. Like anything to kind of crack that shell to start turning back in. Right. And it may be like, I got a promotion today. Okay. Yeah, that's great. That's exterior, but it did affect you. It's interior. Right. So I think even just having that as a tool is something you can definitely grow into, and you get to morph that thing exactly how you want to. There is no wrong way to journal. So I'm like, I'm in. And another thing that was really powerful for me, I was actually, again, God shows me in all different ways. I was looking through a yoga journal one day, and I'd found in there Deepak Chopra's 21-day meditation challenge. And I thought, I've been hearing about this meditation crap. I need to learn about it. And so I signed up for it. And they literally send you the MP3 every morning. And I just literally go pop, and I sit and I sip coffee and I just listen. That qualified as meditation. I'm in, right? So for me, it's like taking the micro baby steps, and then building upon it. Like you said, don't stop. Like make 10 minutes for yourself every morning, and maybe even move that into 20 minutes. I find that it has constantly grown because my body feels healthier. Like it's almost like it's like a hunger craving almost. Like I need 10 minutes just to sit down and jot some stuff out. Like I got too much stuff going on in my head right now. Let me just write this stuff out, right? Yeah. And it's this immediate sense of like, whew, okay, that's not mine anymore. Not right now, at least.
Yes. I so appreciate that. And that's such an easy tool to use. Anybody can do that. Mm-hmm. And such a great way to reset.
Yeah. Midday. Yeah. I mean, it doesn't even have to be in the morning. You could do that on our iPhones. We have notes. Heck, you don't even have to type. Just talk. It cannot get any easier. You cannot tell me that this would not work.
My notes are all over the place. I have to, like, once a month, I have to kind of go through and it's kind of like a treasure chest. It's kind of like Christmas. For me, because I'll go back through and I'll be like, oh my gosh, this is brilliant. Look at how brilliant, like things. And what's interesting about that is, once we do start writing things down, we start clearing the slate from day to day, it opens our mind up to actually be creative and to actually, start to let that brilliance within us really start to bubble up, because so many times there's just so much on us that there's no room for anything extra. Yeah. So just doing that simple exercise, like you said, can just, really start to get our brain pumping out new stuff and creating stuff for our lives. That's great. What's the number one lesson you've learned from your life? All of it.
I am a part of, I am not it. And I say that by very comfortably from the co-pilot seat of my automobile here, that I don't supposed to drive this. I don't supposed to have the projections of where we're going. That's not in my pay scale. For me, it's being present, right? It's to be the co-pilot, to be, watch everything go down and then kind of sit back and just see like, God, how can I help? What can I do? And again, it's I'm a part of something big, and I think when I'm in that state, I'm most fulfilled and I have more room, like we just said. There's less chatter and and I guess also like the more love I give, the more I receive. It's you never run out of it.
Yeah.
So that I think overall is the big picture, that I'm one of many. Thank God.
Yeah. Yeah. How do you balance that as far as giving love, but then also making sure that you're allowing time for yourself? How do you balance that personally?
I always start with me. As selfish as that sounds, and we've heard of the example of, the oxygen in the airplane. I was listening again to Wayne Dyer this morning saying, if no matter what, if you're looking for orange juice, you're not going to get it out of the banana. Like, in order for me to give this, I have to have it.
Yes.
So that's where I start. And so for me, every morning, I have a fabulous husband. He brings me my cup of coffee. I, kind of like wipe my eyes, grab my journal. I write down anything that's eating my lunch from the day before.
Oh,
because
I love
clearly
that.
that's something I'm carrying over. And then what I do, and it's amazing. It's like, I just start having this conversation. Like, well, gosh, Jules, you know better than this. And, oh, we did this once before. And so this dialogue, I guess, between me and Source takes place. And then what it is, it's like almost it shifts me into, okay, now that's cleared out of the way. What are we going to do for today? And I may listen to, a meditation. I may listen to, again, like Wayne Dyer or, somebody that fills that back up for me. Because it's like mine is up and down, right? Like some days I'm full and other days I'm running on E, right? So I have to be very mindful of that. And so there's times, I mean, even like when I'm training, I'm a bodybuilder. And so there are times I need that extra oomph. And so I pop in my headphones that are giving me something about the grind, something to fill it back up. And again, this is part of the we thing, right? Like I don't have to do this by myself. And so that's what I do in the mornings is I really just like set the stage, clear the crap, fill it back up, and then move forward.
That's awesome.
I call it, I ease into the day instead of plunge into the day.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's some power there.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Does your husband drink?
He does. He loves wine. In fact, when I met him, he was like a wine connoisseur. And for the first few years, he was like, you know what, baby, I don't need to be drinking in front of you. And I was like, it doesn't really work that way, but you know what? I will completely accept the gift. I'm okay with this. And so then now it's got to the point where he's comfortable drinking around me, but drinking wasn't my problem. Drinking was my solution. So as long as the problems stay at bay, as long as they stay at bay, I have no interest of, putting the Band-Aid on. So.
Yes. And now you have all the tools that you can use, so you don't have to use alcohol as a tool. That's great.
Exactly. Because that's really all I had. Remember? Limited resources.
Yes.
Limited resources. Mm-hmm.
Yes. One of the things that I love to talk about, as I guess silly as it is in normal conversation, but since I have you here on my podcast, I get to talk about it, is disempowering beliefs. I think disempowering beliefs is kind of this like silent, invisible thing that we're all dealing with so heavily and not knowing it, right? Mm-hmm. So I kind of want to ask, and I love to ask this question because sometimes it brings up things for even myself where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have that. And I had no idea that I had that. And I love to be able to give that gift to myself or, to the viewers listening. So I kind of wanted to ask, what was one of the most disempowering beliefs that you've had in your life? And then what do you believe now?
That's the power of the word. I realize the power of the word. In the book that I wrote, the first page it lists off probably 12 or 15 things that people used to call me. I'm a
Okay.
dropout, you're a drunk, you're promiscuous, you're a slut, and all of these words that gave great power to them to be able to say, but that power also was transferred to me. And so then I started to live by those powerful words. And unfortunately, they weren't positively powerful. And so that was my belief system. That's what I thought I was. You call somebody a slut long enough, I'm going to think I'm a slut.
Yeah.
A dropout. Well, that one even rang true. Of course, that's where I'm going to. So it's like the most disempowering beliefs were everybody else's. And that's what I really, one cool thing about getting sober is that because of the limited resources I had up to that point, I had to really bring it down to a very, very elementary state. So to see the word surrender, for instance, was a mortifying word. Absolutely not. Do you not know where I have come from? Do you want me to surrender? It was like oil and water. Are you nuts? I'm out, right?
Yeah.
But then I would take that word, again, somebody else's word, somebody else's understanding, and I broke it down into a different word that resonated with me. The most profound example was the word unmanageable. I'm thinking, my life's not unmanageable at all. Look I am making it, right? And in my mind, I thought I was making it. But now I'll use words like, what's not working for you? Oh, well, that's a whole different thing, right? So really what I had to do by doing this at such a minute, small stage of my being, I then transferred that into, I'm a woman who is now 50 years old. Do I supposed to look like that? Is that their belief or my belief? Yeah. And so I got to create over the years of these fabulous 14 years of sobriety, of ups and downs and living life. I got to create what's authentic to me by questioning it. Like there's just like, it's almost like you slide into something like, oh, you're a woman and you should, it's like this road that's been paved, but that road wasn't my road. And so I was really struggling with it. And so I had to really look at, is that their beliefs or mine? And most of them were not mine because I didn't even have that level of concept at that stage. And so that's what I do today. Everything from the clothes I wear to the things I choose to do. I mean, oh, come on, I'm 50 years old and I'm a bodybuilder. Most women do not take that route, right? So these are things that are very authentic to me. Right. I love to sail. My husband and I are sailors. We have a boat and we're in the Caribbean. And, there's things that is it mine or is it yours? And this is my belief. So questioning them, like really just being like, and again, bring that into journaling.
Yes.
There's a great place to go right there with journaling.
Yes. When did you get into bodybuilding?
I did when I turned 40.
No kidding.
I did. Girl, I just wanted to get
what inspired you?
Are you ready? Again, super small micro.
Don't tell me somebody gave you a magazine or something.
No, I wanted to get the cellulite off my thighs.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
That's what started it?
That's when it all started. I had a terrible body image issue, right? Because again, this is my vehicle. So this thing has to be perfect and it was never perfect. And so if you imagine living in Texas in our high temperatures during the summer, I would actually wear Spanx underneath blue jeans because I was that uncomfortable with my thighs. Now, keep in mind, I'm 120 pounds. I'm not big. It's complete delusional. Yeah. So what I did is I thought, well, those bodybuilder girls, they don't have any cellulite on their thighs. I want to know what they have. I want that meal plan or, I want that supplement or whatever. And so for the first year, I locked in and I was on a meal plan and for a full year without cheat meals or missing a day without a gallon of water. I was desperate for change. And so I did exactly what she told me to do. And I got the results that I was looking for.
No kidding. And then your body obviously started drastically change. And then during that, you decided, wow, my body is looking hot.
Well, you know,
Let me
people tell you, people are like, oh, you compete. It's like, no, I don't. At the stage, I didn't. And then I was like, wait a minute. Is, again, looking at questioning, is like, is that even a possibility? And I was like, oh, no, this is fine. I mean, and I have to say, even at this point of my life, to say, like, I went to nationals last year and I placed in the top 3 at a national level. I mean, this is the woman who just wanted to fix her thighs. And so even today, like, to say that I'm a bodybuilder, it still doesn't fit. But I've been on that stage numerous times, so I don't know when that's going to sink in yet. But yeah, nothing ever expected.
So what? So any cellulite on the thighs now, or has that disappeared?
I do. Can you imagine that? Now we just call it off season.
Are you looking at it with a microscope?
Well, of course we do. That's what that mirror's for. It's a microscope. No, actually what it did, it has allowed me to, you know, have the ebb and flow of changing my body, actually having some control over my body, because before I just kept doing the same thing and getting no results. So now I've like fine-tuned it. I know exactly what my body and how it responds to various things. I've went to somebody who specializes in this. Heaven forbid, I didn't have all the answers. And so what it is now is like, now I've seen myself get all the way down, you know, depleted, and, you know, every vein showing, and, you know, walking across the stage. And then I've watched how my body will slowly, as I diet out, will, you know, go back to more of a normal state, and then actually appreciate that I need to have meat on my bones in order to build the muscle. Right. So I've learned different aspects of it. So now when I see it, which I do, I'm just like, I'm in off season.
There you go.
So yeah, totally different understanding.
Wow, that's so cool. I love that you were still pivoting, or still are, right? But pivoting at 40. I mean, that is not something that the average person does. That's awesome.
And again, is that your truth or somebody else's?
Great example.
Yeah, I totally have done this all my life, and it's really working out.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Listen, there are still people here listening 47 minutes into our interview. So I would just want to give a shout out to those of you that are hanging out listening to Jules and I chit chat. We so appreciate the support and the love. I would love for you, Jules, to tell us what you do. Obviously, everything you're saying is resonating with those that are hanging out with us on their lunch break. Oh, it's lunch! It's lunch here in Florida, so that might be. There's a handful of people just chilling out with us. What do you do? What's your business? You've written a book. Tell us what's going on.
I have. I think I'm doing it, right? I don't know if it actually has a title, because again, I've kind of piecemealed this together, but you know, I'm a bodybuilder. I'm very strong in my recovery. So I'm a sponsor. I also, again, like, this writing of this book has been profound. It's been so amazing. So I don't know if I can put like a typical title out of what I do, except I do me, and I do it at 100%.
What's the book for? Who's it for?
The girl in the back of the room who thinks she's the only one who's going through this. I've been in those shoes more times than I can even imagine. And there's still times, like you said, I'm still pivoting today. Just because I got sober doesn't mean that all of that changes. It's been this process. It's a process. It's peeling the onion, as we hear. And I just remember at that level of desperation and being disconnected, you know, not attached to even the people in the same room with me. And now I'm learning that that's also with men, more so actually, because men socially is not acceptable for them to share most of their intimate feelings. So they're even more imprisoned than I was.
More susceptible, for sure. That makes sense. What does success mean to you?
Peace, tranquility, exhale. One cool thing about the journey I've been on is I've met some amazing people along my path, both before and after recovery. And I've got to see from an inside point of view. I think once you get to the level where you speak from the heart, you also draw in other people who speak from the heart. So vulnerability is not as uncomfortable as it once was. And so, what's the question?
Oh, success. What does
Success
success
means
mean?
to me is that, gosh, I just get in there and I feel things out as I'm explaining.
Yes.
Sorry. So success for me means like, did I do everything at 100%, right? Did I give it my all, right? No matter what it was. And also I have to watch out for my, like, how I respond to things. Am I in a sense of tranquility? Can I walk through a chaotic storm without, emotionally attaching to my environment? Like, those are things that feel very successful to me today, because I have gotten to see the people who are rich on the outside and the beautiful yachts, and I've gone in those yachts and they're miserable. Or I've gone into those houses and they're empty. So I've had the opportunity to really see both sides, right, of the grass, right? Grass is always greener on the other side. That's not the case. So for me, I think that's what it is. Because if I feel successful, then again, my environment, the people I interact with, will also feel that.
Yes. Yes. I agree with that. What would you say to females right now listening, either here live or on the replay, who are struggling with being their authentic selves?
Well, first I have to say, you're exactly where you're supposed to be, doing exactly what you're doing, first and foremost. I think that really has to be respected. The fact that this is all part of the path and nothing's wrong. When that little twinkle of awareness comes in, or if there's something that resonates with you that you see in someone else, look into that. What is that? I think as in our culture, we are put in so many boxes. I have a blog that actually says there's no wrong way to be a woman, right? And to really look at, like, what trends are you following and what's the motive? Motive is huge. And if the motive is, well, that's what all my friends are doing, or that makes me feel part of, might be something you want to look into.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. That's awesome. Where can we find you?
Thank God for the internet.
Yes. Where can we find you? We have your
Yes.
website over your name, right? It's your
Okay,
website.
excellent. Yes. So that is like my go-to, because that's like my home base, right? Like, so you'll see all of my various podcasts that I've been able to be a part of, the events that we do. You'll of course be able to purchase the book there. I also blog there. You'll also see the social media links there. And that is really cool, because that's kind of like in the now, right? So if I post something, right back, give me your thoughts, even if you need to DM me, because I'm the only one who deals with that part of this. Like, that's my wheelhouse, right? So yeah, the internet is definitely the place.
Beautiful. Is that your handle? I pulled it off of Instagram. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well, listen, I so appreciate you hanging out and relaxing with me. Are you drinking coffee or tea right now? What are you drinking?
This is coffee. It's my second one. Thursdays are my day off.
And drinking your coffee with me. I so appreciate that. And I appreciate you telling your story and, diving into the journey that you've been on. So inspirational. I love the fact that you've pivoted so many times in your life and you're still, open to it. And I think that everything that you're doing on your side over there is brilliant. So thank you.
I'm going to definitely take your word pivotal.
I love that.
Pivot. I like that.
Yes.
Feel that. Yes.
Yes. I love that. Do you have any closing thoughts before we close up here?
I think we've tapped on everything. I think we
it.
really have. Like, journaling is a big deal. Knowing that, this is all it's divine timing. Everything is perfect.
Yes.
And then to keep moving forward, like, take some of this stuff and actually give it some momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%. Well, listen, for those of you listening live, we so appreciate you hanging out with us for almost that full hour. We so appreciate that. For those of you watching on the replay, make sure you #replay so that we know that you were here and you were listening and we can show you guys some love. This community is expanding every single day and is filled with females who are striving to do better than they did yesterday. For those of you that are new to this podcast and like content like this, make sure that you follow and subscribe. If you have an amazing story to share, make sure you reach out to me. I am your host, Sabrina Victoria, and I'm so grateful to be here sharing a platform that allows people to share their truth